This is the Barbados Today morning news for Friday, September 1st. Thank you for joining us. I am Marie-Claire Williams. One women's rights advocate says Thursday's Cutlass attack on 2 women in St. Peter is an indication that the scourge of domestic violence is far from being wiped out. Police are now searching for the suspect, who is believed to be the estranged partner of one of the women. The victims were taken to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital for treatment, and one of them suffered a near-severed hand. First Vice President of the National Organization of Women, Michelle Marshall, says it has been several months since a woman died as a result of a domestic dispute, and she says that this problem needs to be given serious attention.
There's never a time where you could think that the issue of domestic violence is actually, that we've covered all of our bases and everybody's been sensitized. Domestic violence will always raise its head when there is a disturbance, you understand? Whenever there's intimate partner violence, right, the National Organization of Women is concerned. There has not been a lot of public acts that warranted, like the nation's response, but certainly there have been instances in domestic spaces where persons have still been experiencing violence.
Marshall praised the police for setting up a special unit to deal with domestic violence, but she says despite the best efforts of organizations such as the NOW, women are still struggling for their rights to be respected.
Where is the compassion? Where is the love? Where is the partnership that is supposed to be between the masculine and the feminine? This power diversity, this need for control, this has to be deconstructed. The patriarchal model where women are forced into subserviency has to be re-examined. And we have to come back to the tables again to determine what are the social determinants that are causing this perpetual violence. We've had the conversations, we've had the workshop, we've had the sensitizations, we've had the ralliers that have been going out there, and we've been doing the groundwork, talking about violence, but it's not getting through. We're having a challenge with persons still using power to cause pain.
And as police continue their investigations into yesterday's attack, they are calling on the public to desist from circulating videos and photos of the victims via social media. The family of the victims of Tuesday night's double murder also made a similar call earlier this week. Acting police spokesman Inspector Rodney Innes says this has a devastating effect on the families and surviving victims.
But we want persons to be more humane, to be able to sympathize with the family and the loved ones and the victims of crime. That we don't want to have information out there, certainly that we would need for police investigation purposes. But certainly these things affect families in the long run. It's very painful and hurtful in the long run. That's why we do follow up, and that's why we have counseling services for victims of crime. And those are things that we want persons to desist from doing. Of course, whatever information you have, whether via social media, pictures, photography, whatever you have and you want to hand over to the police that will help in our investigations, we would willingly take. But certainly circling around to the international public, scenes that are hurtful to family members, we don't want that. We want persons to desist from that kind of behavior.
In other news this morning, salary negotiations between the National Union of Public Workers and the Ministry of Civil Service have broken down. Both parties resumed talks yesterday, but Barbados Today understands that following the 4-hour meeting, government negotiators said they are not in a position to move from their original position. Public sector workers have not had a pay increase in almost a decade. The NUPW says it will now engage its executive to decide on the next move. Government's controversial cell phone policy, which was scheduled to take effect today, has been put on hold. Education Minister Ronald Jones banned cell phones in schools, but in June last year he raised the possibility that it would be lifted. The move was met with opposition from teachers' unions, who called on the minister to rethink his position.
The society has had a lot of debate, and I'm conscious of discussion, conscious of debate. But at the same time, I am aware of its effective use as a tool within the classroom. I'm also aware that in the wider society there's a substantial misuse of the technologies. Social media is one of those things. That's a technology itself, and it is so badly misused by persons in a society that it is. It's awful. All kinds of rubbish. There's no place on, the various social media programs and that kind of stuff.
Jones says the policy now has to go before the Committee of Governance, a subcommittee of Cabinet, to ensure there is no conflict. He also says the aim is to ensure that the cell phone policy and the internet policy complement each other.
But we've gone ahead with what we would call the management of software within the school system. I think Cabinet only, we got 2 weeks ago, okayed the mobile management systems, I don't remember the name offhand now anyhow, to deal with those across the school system and generally to monitor and to manage those, as well as to put a new student information management system in place to handle a lot of the material, the data, the information, and management of the plethora now of technology we have in the schools.
Jones was addressing the launch of the e-version of the 62nd Annual Conference document of the ruling Democratic Labour Party.
There's regional and international news after this short break.
We are the traders, we run it down. Everybody know we the baddest around. Anything test, we will throw that down. Come in, Peter, and tell me how me sound. Yes, lyric, you're talking the truth. When we walk up there, they have to salute. Why when we put on the traders suit, we put everybody from you. Let's go, traders. Barbados traders. Let's go, traders. Barbados traders. Wash them all. Dust them all. Knock them all. Send them all. Run them all. Brush them all. Get them all. Dust them all. You know why? Barbados traders is better than anything. Nothing can test we beat it.
Thank you for staying with us. We're back with news from the region. Disaster management organizations across the Eastern Caribbean are stepping up their public awareness campaigns in light of the potential threat from Hurricane Irma. The 9th named storm of this year's hurricane season was upgraded to a hurricane yesterday morning before strengthening to a Category 3 storm later in the day. The Miami-based National Hurricane Center says Irma is about 1,780 miles east of the Leeward Islands and is moving towards the west-northwest near 12 miles per hour. It is expected to continue on this path, followed by a westward turn tomorrow and a west-southwestward motion by Sunday. The NHC says it is possible that the strength of the storm could fluctuate, but Irma is expected to remain a powerful hurricane for several days. Further afield, border guards in Bangladesh have recovered 24 bodies from the country's shore in the past few days. This as tens of thousands of Rohingya Muslims attempt to flee the worst violence involving them in Myanmar in 5 years. We get the details in this Reuters report.
Injured and traumatized, Rohingya Muslims continue to scramble towards Bangladesh. Migration workers say some of them are burnt and even have bullet holes in their bodies. The lucky ones have made it across the border, but thousands are stranded in no man's land as Bangladeshi authorities refuse to let them through. More than 18,000 men, women and children have fled the bloodshed in Myanmar's lawless northern state of Rakhine, where the army is hitting back hard on the Muslim minority after a string of insurgent attacks last week.
Buddhists are burning houses and shooting people. They shot my husband.
From the border area, smoke seen rising in the distance is a constant reminder of violence sweeping Rohingya villages. In the commercial capital Yangon, hundreds of people, including Buddhist monks, gathered on Wednesday to protest the insurgent attack, calling for the military to take control of Rakhine and protect thousands of Buddhists caught up in the crosshairs. According to Myanmar's government, more than 100 people have been killed in the latest clashes, including militants, soldiers and civilians.
And finally, the story of one man who has been making the best of an unfortunate situation. Shang Xian Liang, who lost his hand in an accident, is making free prosthetic hands for those in need. He creates the hand using inexpensive 3D printing. His youngest client is 5-year-old William, who was born without a right hand. That's news this morning. Remember, you can get more on our website, www.barbadostoday.bb. You can also subscribe to our e-paper, email updates, and like us on Facebook. We're on Izumi Media in bus terminals and Screenplay at supermarkets and gas stations near you. You can also find us on Mix 96.9 FM. I am Mary Claire Williams. Have a good morning.